Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Friday. It is currently 30 degrees. Temperature is going to be decreasing as the day goes on to the low 20s, and with some snow early. 6:27 is the sunrise, and 5:34 is the sunset. And it is Friday again. And man, the week just keeps flying by. Every uh, every week goes by quicker and quicker, seemingly, and spring is about to open up, and the seasons are changing, and the days are getting longer. So got some new old beginnings, right? New old beginnings. It's a new spring, but it's the same stuff happens, right? Same stuff happens. Um, isn't that likened to our sin and sin nature? You notice there's the temptations are all the same, the lusts are all the same, the sin essentially is all the same. It just circles around, right? It circles around. And now, when I say the sin is all the same, I mean the internal heart, right? The internal heart, the the same, the enemy pulls on the same things, right? Now the overt behaviors change, sure, right? It's they change, or maybe they don't, right? Maybe they don't, but there's nothing new under the sun, right? There's nothing new under the sun. So a lot of it is falling back into the same patterns of thought, the same patterns of heart. Um, and I say that all that to say, because here in John chapter 9, the same pattern of heart shows up with the Pharisees, right? It's a hard heart. It's a hard heart, and it's the Jewish leadership. There's a fear of losing power. Okay, fear of losing power, and it's the same kind of the same thing over and over again. And so here in chapter 9, we see a man. He's healed, right? We looked at that yesterday. Jesus spat on the ground, rubbed some mud on his eyes, and told him to go wash it off in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. Okay, that's verse 7, chapter 9, verse 7. Then he goes through a series of interrogations. Hold on, I gotta blow my nose. Hold on. All right. So he goes through a series of interrogations, and starting in verse 8, chapter 9, verse 8. So he's interrogated by his neighbors, and they're questioning his identity. And then, through that questioning, he gets to give his testimony, right? Um, so they asked him, so they said to him, verse 10, then how were your eyes open? He answered, the man called Jesus made mud on and anointed my eyes, said to me, go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed and received my sight. So the man gets to share the gospel message. Hear the word by faith, walk and believe, right? And do the word. Know him and keep his commandments. That was pretty simple. All right. Then so then he's questioned by the Pharisees. Okay? So they brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. All right, that's verse 13. And so again, he proves his testimony, proves who he is. Um, they ask him in verse 15 how he received his sight, and he said to them, he put mud on my eyes, and I washed, and I see. So he kept it a little shorter with them, and perhaps being frustrated by keep having to go over his testimony. I'm I guess I'll pose the question: do you ever get frustrated with it? Um, Having to keep going back over it in certain situations with certain people who just refuse to get it. So we start to see that to build here in this line of interrogations. Um, and so in let's see, verse 18 to 23, um, we see the religious leaders, right? The religious leaders question him. The religious leaders question him. It says the Jews, right? And the Greek word there is, I'm going to mess it up, of course. I always do with my Greek. Uh, Ladeoi. Ladeoi, right? And so that means the religious, probably leaders and their followers. And so these people, they did not believe that he had been blind and then received his sight until they called the parents of the man who had received his sight. So now they're questioning the man's parents. And so they they said, yes, he is our son, right? And they say, we know that this is our son and that he was born blind. And then they, in 21 through um, 21 and 22, they kind of they put it back on his son, right? It's like, he's of age, let him tell you. And John notes here in 22 that his parents said these things because they feared the Jews, and this is the same word for religious leaders and their followers. For the Jews had already agreed that if anyone should confess Jesus to be the Christ, he was to be put out of the synagogue. So they didn't want to answer out of fear of being put out of the synagogue. And again, I'm going to pose this question. Do you ever find yourself in a position not wanting to share your testimony or share about Jesus or answer questions about Jesus um, because of the reaction that would happen in that particular environment or community, like the workplace? You know, that's one for me where I do have to be careful. Um, now, in so I work in public education. If I'm asked directly, I can answer. Right? It's the promotion of, right, or soliciting or pushing of an agenda that essentially I could be in trouble for, which I find ironic because ideologies and agendas are pushed all the time from the liberal perspective, you know, and conservative perspective. But I just find it ironic that the repercussions or the punishment procedures are contingent towards um, religious ideologies. Yep. Yeah. I'll let you read between the lines on that. So for the second time, they called the man. All right. So they call him back, and this is verse 24. They call him back, and he answered, "Whether he is a sinner, I do not know. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see." So now he's becoming um, a little, I don't know if terse, a little direct, a little more um, abrupt in his answering, right? Maybe a little frustration coming out. And why do you want to hear it again? He asks in verse 27. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples? So now he's really putting it on him. Like, you keep asking me for it. You want to know so bad, do you want to become one of his disciples? And they reviled him, saying, you are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. So here we go, back to the Moses, um, the prophet, Moses and the prophet theme. Remember John 5:37 through 46, they were talking about Moses and the prophet, and they also put themselves in as sons of Abraham, okay, as sons of Abraham, but followers of Moses. And here we are back here in verse 28, followers of Moses. So we see there's two camps, essentially. There's two camps, and you know, in John's writing, we see the separation quite a bit, right? There's quite a bit of Jesus in his preaching and his teaching and his disciples, a separation, right? Jesus, we see, really came to separate. He came to separate what was his, and that should not be lost, right? John chapter 6. What should what should be his and will not be lost will be separated, right? We will be separated, and that's, guys, that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. Everybody can't be the same, and it's everybody does not get a trophy. Okay, everybody doesn't get a trophy. It's it's okay to be different, you guys. It's okay to be different. We should be a peculiar people as strangers, right? Sojourners in the world. We're here, but we don't belong here, right? We belong in heaven. We belong with the Lord, although we are here for now. So, verse 29, we know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he comes from. They're not hearing, right? They're not hearing. John 8:58. Why aren't they hearing? Because they're sons of the devil, right? They can't hear the truth because the word has no. They can't bear to hear the word. It does not. They don't has does not abide in them. Then the man answers, verse 30. Now his answer. This is a verse 30 through 33. This is all the man speaking. This is all one quote. And the man answered, Why? Why? This is an amazing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes? We do. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but if anyone is a worshiper of God and does his will, God listens to him. Oh, we know. Okay, you don't know where he comes from, but he opened my eyes. So what do we know? Right? Now the Pharisees should know this. We know that God does not listen to sinners. All right. So one, he doesn't listen to sinners. So if you're a sinner and God's not listening to you, why don't you know? Okay. Now listen what else he says. But if anyone is a worshiper of God, so worshiper of God and does his will, worshiper of God and does his will, God listens to him. See, there's two pieces to this life. It's worshiper and doer. Okay? Worshiper and doer. So if you're a sinner, you're not a worshiper and you're not a doer. Right? But if you're a regenerate sinner, if you're a sinner that repents, in order to repent, you have to worship, right? You have to believe his word, and then you have to do it. It's 2 steps. Worship, do. Worship, do. And God listens to him. Now he says, never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a man born blind. It's never been done before. Okay? It's never been done before. Then he ends it. Verse 33. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. So, this answer that this man gives as somebody who was looked down upon. Now in the culture, remember the crippled person was had no standing. They were a lesser person. Okay, a lesser person. Now he gives this I want to say beautiful rebuke is what it is. It's a beautiful rebuke. And it reveals quite a bit. Okay, it reveals quite a bit. I want to talk about prayers of intercession, right? Prayers of intercession, who they come from. Okay, they come from those that are worshipers and do his will. Why? Because God listens to him. So, the regenerate person, the person who repents, okay, a true worshiper and doer has the ear of God. Has the ear of God. See, these perfect people in the temple, right, at the time, they didn't have the ear of God because why? They weren't worshipers and doers. They might have been worshipers having all the head knowledge, but they weren't doing it. And they did not have God's ear. Their prayers were null and void. Null and void. Right? So that's a little insight onto intercessions, prayers of intercession, but also healing, right? Also healing. See, we can't we cannot heal anybody. Notice it's never been done before, right? It's never been done before. But Jesus did it. Why? Because you know where he comes from. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. Okay? So we know where he comes from. So we know where healing and we know where the casting out demons come from, right? It comes from Jesus. It comes from Jesus. See, I've, these prayers, I command you to heal, and all those things. When those are not prayers of intercession, they're not prayers of healing. It's that type of stuff. In the way that it's done is bogus. It's bogus. Now we can, through prayer, plead for intercession, and the Lord can miraculously heal. Okay, the Lord can miraculously heal. And in James chapter 5, it talks about going to your elders for prayer for healing. Okay, I think it's both physical and spiritual. All right, so it can be done, but it's through prayer of intercession by those that worship and do. Worshipers and doers. See, being a pastor, an elder, it doesn't make you any better than anybody, right? It just makes you more keen on repenting. It should make you more humble. It should make you the more alert to and more self-aware to the word speaking to your heart, causing you to repent, and being more in a face down position than a head up position. It's more of a face down position than a head up position, right? And in our face down, our prayer is that you can hold your heads up, right? That's what it is, y'all. Anyway, have a good week. Make it to church, y'all. Make it to church. Go if there's an infirmity, whether physical or spiritual, in both. Seek out the elders in your church, y'all. Seek out the elders in the church that they can pray for intercession, right? Pray for intercession for you.